Hey guys, and welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local offshore, nearshore, and inshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We got a great fishing report lined up for you guys this week, but first let's hear who's making the show possible. Sam Rust Seafood, your locally trusted source for premium wholesale seafood. Servicing customers from Hampton Roads down through the Outer Banks, Richmond, and surrounding areas, including Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, and Lynchburg, for over 80 years. Committed to the highest standards in the industry, Sam Rust distributes the best of the ocean directly to your restaurant, hotel, or grocery store on time and at a great price. Visit samrust.com to discover how quality, tradition, and sustainability come together. So don't cuss, call Sam Rust. Listen up, folks. AFTCO has a new promotion for all Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network listeners. They're now offering a camo sunglasses cleaner cloth with any purchase of AFTCO products. I especially enjoy their hooded sun protection shirts, as well as their Seiko fluorocarbon. All you got to do to get your coupon code is text LCBFR to 779-345-2918. Again, just text the letters LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get subscribed to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, y'all. Well, welcome to this week's show. We're going to do something a little bit different this week. Unfortunately, the weather has just not been super great. So, we talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. And some of the ugly lately has just been this northeast blow, these rains. So, hadn't been a whole lot of fishing going on. But what I want to do is just take some time this week to kind of do a little bit of a recap of the summer of 2024. Man, we've had a really exciting season. It's been exciting to, bring this new platform, this podcast to you guys and introduce so many of our local great charter guides. This idea of how do we connect local charter guides with anglers in the areas to provide a resource for knowledge and some information transfer to help you as recreational anglers become more successful in your weekend adventures, and also give you the chance to get to know some of the local professionals and experts of all different types of species, whether that's offshore, nearshore, or inshore. I don't know about y'all, but I have learned so much, and it's caused me to become maybe more of a critical thinker or more of an innovator when it comes to fishing, whatever that species is that I'm going to chase. Everything from dropping down the line weight so that I can get a further cast, to considering what style hook I'm going to use, to, thinking more about water temperatures and depths and bottom features and all the things that sometimes can, just kind of blow right past you. And now you start taking those things into a little bit more account as you plan your trips and go out on your adventures. But one thing that, we love to do here in the Lower Chesapeake Bay, we're kind of I guess world famous for, now that I'm learning, is this cobia fishery. And something we talk about on the show a lot is sustainability and the importance of sustainable fishing practices. And they've popularized the release over 20 for speckled trout. And I know that several of our folks, Captain Jack Limroth, Chris Ludsford with Pleasure House Oyster Company, and several others, that are practicing, not keeping a full limit of sheep's head. Those fish are several years old, 20 plus years old at times when they're over that 10-pound range. And, I think it was Top-Notch Sport Fishing, Captain Russ Castinas, jokingly said, hey, there's no one restocking the grocery store at night, on those buoys offshore or wherever those mahi are. Sometimes you got to take it easy on the species. So as you consider your harvest practices, and what you're going to put in stock in your freezer, all I would ask is that we start thinking about the generation ahead and the generation after that. And this is kind of leading into the conversation that we're going to have with Captain Matt Maldwin and his mate, Adam Dye, aboard the Click-Through, which is the Fathom offshore team fishing boat. They're out of Florida, Pensacola, and that Northwest Gulf area. And they've fished in there a lot out of Destin. And, they've experienced firsthand what misuse of the fishery and overfishing can result in. And it's not a fun thing to talk about, but we have the potential to help continue healing the fishery here and keep it as strong as it is, or we have the potential to continue to damage it. And it really boils down to each individual angler taking personal responsibility for what they can do to contribute to, sustainability. And I want to give a shout out to someone that's, been a big support of the show, Garrett Busick. One of the best text messages that I got this summer was, hey man, listen to the show last week and I released a 52 incher and didn't harvest it, because of what I heard you guys talking about on the show. So, Garrett, my hat's off to you. So anyone that's listening and tuning in this week, as you think about next year with cobia fishing in particular, take some time to read up. I'll probably, post a few things in the Facebook group here soon, just to provide some further education and information about, what sustainable practices are, what they mean. But at the end of the day, it just boils down to, hey, if you're out there, and you have the opportunity to release a fish that's 48, 49, 50 inches long, go ahead and release it and keep, one or two in that 42, 44-inch range. And I've personally found they're easier to clean, they're easier to prepare, and in my opinion, they taste a whole lot better. So without further ado, I want to jump into this next conversation with Captain Matt and Adam, just talking about their experience taking a 68-foot Juan Cheese Irwin Forbes built boat and fishing it out of Rudy Inlet and going after Chesapeake Bay cobia. So we're going to take a quick break and hear from this week's sponsor, and then we'll jump right back into that conversation. Hilton's Offshore Charts. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. So make the choice that professional captains all over the East Coast make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. That's hiltonsoffshore.com. All right, guys. Well, welcome to this segment. I'm excited to talk to these two guys. They've become quick and fast friends of mine, and also just they've got some stories, man. They've fished all over the world. A couple weeks ago, we got the pleasure to talk to Captain Matt Maldwin of the Click Through out of Gulf Breeze, Florida, the Fathom Offshore team fishing boat. And more recently, as we've actually fished together a little bit, got to know the mate of the boat, Mr. Adam Dye. So, guys, welcome to the show. How y'all doing?
Pretty good. We'll make it.
Captain Matt, I know there's a couple of days of northeast, winds that you guys fished in has done a number on your back, bent you upside down and inside out. How are you feeling these days?
Oh, like I said, we'll make it. But yeah, been to the chiropractor a couple times, so we're getting back to it.
There you go. Well, Adam, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners? Tell us a little bit about your background and how you found the Click Through and what it's been like working under Captain Matt for the last season.
Well, I'm real new to the whole sport fishing industry. I just recently graduated from UNC Charlotte and moved in with my parents in Stuart, Florida, and wasn't really wanting to get a desk job. And I kind of advertised myself and had some opportunities come up and was able to pick this one. And luckily they were needing some help at the time. So kind of the stars aligned, and it's really opened my eyes to how much hard work it is, just not only fishing, but like maintaining the vessel and from every day, just normal maintenance. Yeah.
Does Captain Matt, does he work you hard? I mean, what would you say has been one of the, maybe dig into like a very specific boat maintenance item that you had no clue how much time and elbow grease it took? What would you say is like the one thing, the one chore on a boat that is like, wow, this is really hard, really tough?
It's not hard, but it's just kind of tedious, in the mornings. And then when you're coming in from fishing somewhere, just salt gets everywhere, dew gets everywhere, just rinsing and drying, chamoying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Matt does work me hard, but it would be a completely different story if he wasn't working hard himself. It's amazing. Like, he doesn't really take any days off. And, he says his back hurts, but rightfully so if he's 56 and working as hard as he is.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yep. And that's a tall tower to climb up and down to get in and out, and then sending rods up and down and operating the boat and casting and God knows what else. But right now, you guys are actually sitting up at Blue Water in Hampton. Captain Matt, what brought you guys there? What's been going on with the boat?
Well, we hit something with one of our props the other day as we were leaving. Unfortunately, it's the day that the boss man flies in to go fish for 3 days straight, and he hadn't been on the boat 10 minutes. I had a big old pot of gumbo waiting for him when he got off of his flight and got to the boat at like 10:30 in the morning. And he goes in there all nice and happy, got something to eat. And 5 minutes later, we're leaving the slip, and bam, just unfortunate, but if you've been running boats long enough, stuff like that just happens. So we had to haul out, got a bent blade on one of the props, and it's like 3-day turnaround. We'll be back at it again.
Yep. I know Austin McDonald with McDonald Marine was on board fishing with us. Was able to, touch base with some folks. I mean, that's a 68-foot boat getting hauled and worked on is no easy task. So, I mean, he had to talk to several folks around the bay, and then, fortunately Blue Water had a spot. So hopefully you guys are back in the water here soon. Looks like maybe prospecting Friday to go scope around and see if there's a few fish left swimming. But I want to dive into fishing, this past week. It was Thursday. We got out there together, Austin, myself, you guys, Brownie, and El Jefe, as you call him, the boss man. Talk us through that day of fishing. There's one specific thing I want to talk about, but we'll save that for a little bit, into the discussion. But what was it like that day of fishing for you guys? The Chesapeake Bay chasing cobias in a 68-foot boat. What was the experience as captain navigating and locating these fish and then trying to get tight on them? What was that like for y'all?
I just listened to the locals, you and Austin. Y'all put us on them. And that's just part of it. I always try to get that local knowledge. And but it was pretty good. We found a bunch of rays and a bunch of fish on them. But the wind was gassing pretty much, I think, 20 knots or more. And though getting proper shots on these fish was a little difficult for us at times. And having to learn how to play the wind when you're casting. And we were making most of our cast off the bow. And it's a little rocky and rolling up there, but I try to set the boat upwind of the fish so they're casting downwind. And But the fish here, unlike the fish that we have in the Gulf of Mexico, seem to be a little bit gun shy here. You get one or two quick shots. If you don't make the right shot, the fish go down, and they're hard to a lot of times they don't want to come back up, so it makes things difficult. We saw a lot of fish that day and didn't have a whole lot of competition amongst other boats and stuff. So in this size boat, it works out pretty good when it gets a little rougher fishing around here.
Yeah, it seems like you make a great conclusion there. We saw a huge number of fish and a huge number of rays that I have not personally seen all summer long. And then just coincidentally, we happened to be the only boat out there that day because it was, 4 to 5 foot seas. Adam, what was your experience like, being up there on the bow and then, seeing these fish and watching us, struggle to cast? What did you think for your first time, looking at some lower Chesapeake Bay cobias, swimming around and being goofy?
Well, on our transit from Ocean City was kind of when it opened up my eyes to this fishery, seeing a big ray mat I hadn't seen many cobia before, so I thought they were massive cobia, but just the volume of fish is impressive, and it's definitely something to go and tell mom about. Just all these beautiful fish.
It's hard to compare to, anywhere else in the world. What you guys see in Florida, what would you say if you go out, Adam, in Florida, cobia fishing with your buddies, what would you say is the average number of cobias you might see in a day?
Maybe a couple, maybe
Wow.
a pair of them or something. And the Gulf is different from what I've heard. I haven't been over there. Captain Matt has torn it up over there.
We almost don't have any anymore off of Northwest Florida, where the migration used to happen and take place, and where we'd have tournaments every weekend of April, and we'd fish 45 days straight. Now we don't even fish for them anymore. There's probably, I don't even think there was a dozen migrators that got caught this year, when we used to release a dozen on average per day.
Man.
And we released lots of 50, 60-pound fish over the years, lots of 70-pound fish even, just because there was so many, always looking for something bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just non-existent now. So it's great. Like you mentioned, Brownie, he came up to experience your fishery here in the Chesapeake, just because it's something that most of us from down there haven't done since 2014 or so, almost 10 years ago now. Yeah, it's been even getting worse and worse each year in the Gulf. But they don't have the problem over in Louisiana and Mississippi that we do in Florida. So I think those fish are coming up from the Texas side.
That's interesting migration patterns to kind of, key in on, for Northwest Florida to see them in the migration, and then now you don't see them hardly at all. We've got scientists trying to, track and figure them out here in the lower Chesapeake, whether they're coming and going from offshore or coming and going north and south up and down the coastline. In the previous episode that you were on, I said I would save a few things for now. I want to talk briefly about two things. One, some big cobias, and then two, some sustainability advice based on what you've experienced. So first of all, let's dive into some big cobias. So tell me about some of your biggest cobias you guys have ever caught and what those tournaments that you were in were like back when y'all could kill like six of them and they were always just huge. But I want to hear firsthand what were some of these bigger fish like?
You always get excited when you see a slob, as we would call them up there. Slobzilla would be one over 100 pounds. And pretty much all through the 90s and early 2000s, or the late 90s and early 2000s, we would see one to two fish that we would say was definitely over 100 pounds each season. And those fish, just like all other species, they don't get big by being stupid. Getting one to eat could be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to work at it. My biggest personally is 121-pound cobia. I've got a 98 also in a tournament, and lots of 80-pounders. And that's usually what it would take to get a first place big fish in a tournament up there is going to be something over 80 pounds.
I mean, that's unheard of these days, for the lower Chesapeake Bay. We've got the numbers, but we certainly don't have Slobzilla, as you would call them. I think you guys told me about one story of one that it was like 2.5 hours or something along those lines to get it finally to eat. It ate, spit, or something. What do you recall that story? There was either you or Brownie telling me about it.
Yeah, I believe Brownie was telling you he was on the boat. It was Miles Colley was the captain, and Tommy Holmes was the angler. A wad of fish with a very large fish on a leatherback turtle. And they had hooked the fish right off the bat and broke the fish off on the turtle.
Oh.
And they followed the turtle for 2.5 hours and laid off of him, letting that fish settle down. And they finally got him to eat what we call a ruby lip snappers, little grunt. Finally got him to eat. And that fish ended up weighing 127 pounds.
The 127 pounds, incredible. That's Slobzilla XXXL, as my buddy Travis Kemp with Foolproof Fishing would say. But the diligence and the patience to sit on a fish for 2.5 hours is even more remarkable to me.
Yes, yeah. I believe they caught a couple fish while they were paralleling that turtle that was migrating down the shoreline.
Wow.
While they were keeping up with the turtle and spotting some other fish that weren't with the turtle. And back in the day, that would be the norm. While you're fighting a fish, you got another fish swimming up, and just so many fish in that fishery back in the day.
Well, I know of the pretty days that y'all were able to fish while you were here. You saw, what we would probably call, Floatzilla, which is the 5 million boats that come out, fishing. Can you imagine that leatherback with that 127 pounder on it here in the Chesapeake Bay? You'd have 9,700 boats surrounding that turtle, throwing jigs and God knows what at it.
Yeah, that fish would have never ate after the first time for sure.
It's interesting too. So I'm assuming this ruby-lipped grunt that you're talking about, that was a different, or maybe one of the last baits that they, figured out to try to throw at it. I'm sure they threw everything else under the sun at it that it just wouldn't eat after that first time.
Wasn't there, but I imagine so. Generally, we're carrying vermilion snappers, mullets, eels, some crabs, catfish, you name it. We try to have a smorgasbord for them to throw out. We've thrown crawfish at them. I've even thrown a stone crab at one, but it looks like a stone when it hits the water. I wouldn't recommend that again.
Yeah.
You name it, anything. You know how they can be. They can be very finicky, and then all of a sudden, something they haven't seen, boom, they'll suck it right down like they're starving.
Yeah, sometimes they act like, somebody that's just, not even slightly hungry. And then sometimes they act like 6'7" Adam, who, if he hears food, he's going to eat it. Today at lunch, the burrito was the size of my right thigh and he ate it, in like 17 seconds. But, Adam, we were up there on the bow of the boat and, Brownie was throwing one of my rods. Keith English was throwing the Van Stall. And, I hear Captain Matt over the radio, saying, all right, we just want to make sure we got the circle hooks on all the rods. And I kind of looked over at you and I was like, my rod has a J hook on it.
Yeah.
So talk me through, you guys circle hooks us in the Chesapeake Bay, a lot of times J hooks. Adam, why the circle hook? What's your thought process behind that as opposed to the J hook?
Well, with your J hooks, you're obviously going to want to use those around the bridges because you can't give them that split second to inhale it and turn. And so you just want to stick them and tow them out as fast as you can. But I mean, on this boat, I don't see why you wouldn't want to use a circle hook. I mean, it's not easy to move around, and once you're hooked up on one of those things, it ain't coming out.
You make a good point there about, we were fishing on the bow of that boat. It was chunky seas, and you didn't really have the ability to do that big old Bill Dance swing that you need to do with the J hook. So I did observe, and I gotta admit, my mind got changed because we were 100% of the fish that ate the circle hook. We were 100% hookups, but it was just kind of this like gentle, almost graceful process where we were like calling it out. All right, fish ate, okay. And then I heard Keith one of the times, okay, he's swimming away from me. I'm going to go ahead and, start coming tight. And then boom, each time they hooked up and it was kind of effortless. But like you said, against the bridge, you got to have that J hook for that split second. And I do want to take a quick pause and jump back to a couple days prior from that when you did come out with Eric, Keith, and I on his boat that spooled up. Tell us a little bit about your experience, coming tight on a couple of bigger fish. What was that like?
Yeah, that was unreal. I mean, y'all were 4 or 5 foot above me up in the tower, and you're able to spot fish just so much quicker than I could on that far piling.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, y'all hooked up on two of the biggest Kobe I've ever seen, a 57 and a 52, and yeah, those are some dogs. We killed that one 50-pounder with that tag in it. That one was really cool. I'll forever remember that. But part of me wants to also say screw both of you and Eric for kind of ruining cobia fishing for me for at least a year or so. But yeah, that was incredible hearing Matt talk about a 121-pounder and a 127-pounder doesn't even seem real. It was hard to hold up that 50-pounder, and I'm like, man, I didn't even know they made them this big. Like, yeah, those are big fish. I can't even imagine one that would be able to eat the one I caught.
Yeah, it is. It is crazy to think about, but I was so stoked that you got to experience that because it's definitely kind of special. The bridge fishing is special, and that Thursday that we got out there, Captain Matt, we fished in those rays. It was on the outgoing tide. Is that correct, or is it incoming? Trying to remember.
Incoming, yeah.
Incoming
On that, yeah, when it was roughest, yeah, it was.
Yeah, and then the rays kind of seemed to settle down. We had about a 2.5 hour stretch where it was just nonstop, ray mats with packs of fish. And then all of a sudden it was just kind of nothing. And we were, deciding on what to do and talk us through what we did next, which was kind of an adventure on that bigger boat. But talking about bridge fishing.
Yeah. Well, we looked for the ray mats for another 45 minutes and couldn't see another one when right before then they were just pouring through. Seems like it just went down to me. I just kept staying in the same area and they didn't seem to really be moving, just holding up into the current. And once we decided they weren't going to show anymore, we went on up with, the tide was coming in because we went up on the north side of the bridge, the down current side, and trying to stick y'all up underneath the bridge, so to speak, while y'all are on the bow. And I'm eye level with the cars on the bridge, and they're waving and honking at us. And Adam was mooning them, and I'm just kidding. But Matt might have been what they were honking at. But yeah, it was fun. But with that wind, we were throwing into the wind trying a little bit, and it didn't really pan out for us. But we did see some fish, and getting that big boat to maneuver to where y'all could get a shot. That, like I said, y'all's fish are very spookish around here.
Yep.
And I guess you got to bump it in gear, maybe put one in reverse, and back home we don't have a problem with throttling up on a fish and them staying on top, or putting them in gear and having them stay up on top. It seems like any bit of variation in your clutches or throttles here sends them to the bottom. On the Gulf Coast, our migrating fish, if you bump it in reverse, that'll send them to the bottom. Like, you blink your eyes and you don't even see them no more. It's not like a gradual fade or anything. But Here, it's almost any variation seems to have a big effect on them. The learning curve I've had to deal with here, you know.
And you're also fishing a boat that is, virtually 4 to 5 times, if not 6 times bigger than the average boat lengthwise that's fishing for them. And you got some bigger engines. My experience, interesting enough, was that they were a little less spooky than what I experienced on our, smaller center consoles with those four strokes with a little bit higher pitch whine than those big, cats that you got back there pushing whatever it was, 1,350 horses each with the 3412 cat motors.
Yeah.
Adam's very, very impressed just then with my recall. I couldn't believe that we remembered that because we were trying to ask what that stood for, and it was 12 cylinders, 3412, and then the 34 was what again?
My age.
There you go. Well, I will say this. I got a tour of the engine room. It was phenomenal. So many incredible, intricate systems interwoven into such a small space. It truly is a engineering marvel the way that those things operate, from you've got the dual generators down there, the dual engines, you've got the blower systems, you've got the, the sea chest with all of your different attachments for your tuna, chutes and all the different things coming together. It's amazing that it works, and amazing that Adam, you've picked up how to, run all those, systems, or at least turn the knobs and be Matt's hands and feet.
Maybe half, it seems. Yeah, there's a lot.
The reverse osmosis system, turning seawater into fresh water, the ice maker. But speaking about you, Adam, one of the things that's unique about you is you are 6'7" and you wear what, a size 14 or 15 shoe?
14, yeah.
14. So you've got an incredibly stable platform, when you're walking around. Huge feet, big wingspan. You can hold on to rails. Talk us through what happened. We've got these headsets and they've, got a pretty good range, but what happened that day while we were out there?
Well, these headsets are waterproof for about 5 seconds once they get dunked underwater.
And how does one go about dunking their headset underwater?
So I was walking from the bow towards the cockpit, and I was trying to put that Zappa cap away because I just glued that paddle tail back together up there.
Mm-hmm.
And
thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. Just it happened in a blink of an eye. 1 second I was kind of turning around the rod holders to get back in the cockpit, and the next second I'm just underwater. And I guess maybe the boat rocked a certain way and my foot slipped, or maybe I just wasn't being careful enough. But yeah, I went for a little swim.
Thank God for the headsets, because we're all just face forward, looking at cobias, very entranced, and then all of a sudden we all hear in our headsets, "Hey guys, I'm in the water," and we're like, "What?" We turn around and there you are, bobbing around in the Chesapeake Bay in these 5-foot seas. But like a proper, responsible young man, you're holding up your cell phone over your head. You saved the most important thing.
Yeah. One of the first things I thought about when I was in the water is, I wasn't like scared or felt like I was in danger or anything. I was like, man, I could not be doing this from home, or I can't be doing this if I was working at a desk. Like,
yep.
This ain't too bad.
Absolutely. You are the second guy this season to go in. Jack Limroth of King Tide got the affectionate nickname Slip Tide. Sadly, slipped off the back of Robbie Bryan's outlier boat and went in similar comical fashion, but certainly not in 5-foot seas. And we're all glad that you are okay. No injuries. Had a great attitude about it. Once we realized you're okay and in the boat, we were able to then, laugh about it.
I'm just glad it happened while we were sight fishing and not running 80 miles offshore and at like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Absolutely. Lessons learned for sure. All right, guys, that wraps up a great segment. Let's take a quick break and check out this week's sponsors. It's time we talked about catching some serious savings. Imagine harnessing the power of the sun to cut your energy bills and having a roof that's built to last. Convert Solar and Roofing specializes in top-notch solar installations and durable roofing solutions that stand up to the toughest elements. Their solar panels are designed to maximize efficiency, and their roofs are built with premium materials to ensure long-lasting protection. Whether you're out on the water or at home, their expert team ensures you're covered. As fellow anglers in the Lower Chesapeake Bay, the team at Convert Solar and Roofing cares about both sustainable living and sustainable fishing. So reel in those savings today and visit www.convert-solar.com or call 757-44-SOLAR. Make your energy and roof as reliable as your favorite fishing lure. Call Convert Solar and Roofing today. Did you know every 40 seconds someone has a heart attack or stroke? In that moment, every second counts and every critical decision matters. Air Medcare Network's air ambulance providers can provide life-saving care directly to those in need at a moment's notice. With 320 locations across 38 states, they're the largest air ambulance membership network. Rest assured, they've got you and your entire household covered. Membership is just $99 a year or just $79 for seniors. Visit gdo.deals/airmedcare to enroll. So, as we kind of, wrap up this experience of, sight casting for cobias in the Chesapeake Bay from a 68-foot boat, and you guys are coming from a totally different, genre and fishery and a set of experiences, what would you say was one of the kind of biggest learning curves of all the things that you guys experienced over the past couple of weeks?
For me, it might be casting into the wind. I mean, I'm not too sure there's an entire learning curve for that. I mean, sometimes you can, other times you can't, but that was just difficult, casting into the wind, and sight fishing was a little difficult the past 2 weeks or so, the weather permitting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm sure Matt has to talk about the wind and conditions too.
My thing was just the nature of the fish and how spooky they are, and taking my time to set up on the fish. I tried to just keep one in gear so we're moving slow enough,
mm-hmm.
and to get the boat positioned in with that wind where we are upwind of them so they can make the cast off the bow. But coming in on them with just one engine in gear where I'm not having to take one out of gear that might spook the fish, that allowed them to get in throwing range and get a couple shots off before I had to pull it out of gear.
Mm-hmm.
And usually they'd have a fish hooked up before I had to make an adjustment. And that's just what I could do to help, seal the deal on getting the hook up. I fished with you 3 years ago up here, and we were fishing quite a bit farther offshore. And I don't feel that we were fishing the ray mats out there. And it seemed like a little bit different mindset on those fish as opposed to the ray mats up closer to the bridge. They just did not seem to be as spookish offshore.
Yep.
They seemed to be a little bit easier to get a bite out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what I struggled with this year up here. And we were fishing a little bit later in the season. I think we're fishing the end of August 3 years ago when I was up here with you.
August 26th and 27th.
First part of September.
Mm-hmm.
Not that big of a difference in the time date, but we only found, when we came down from Ocean City, we found that one big mat of rays offshore, and we have looked, given an honest effort to find them again since then. I think that was like September 1st when we came down, and we have not seen any more way out there like that. I think that's the biggest thing, is just learning how to approach them in this size boat.
Yeah, and trying to put those data points together like we talked about in your last episode about, talking about offshore, how you're looking at your 3 or 4 different weather reports and your chlorophyll shots and your bathymetry and your altimetry. I probably pronounced one of those wrong, but sea surface temperatures, and collecting all that data and starting to form some history to pull from and to have some confidence to say, okay, we didn't see fish yesterday, so let's go back to when we did see fish and let's consider what our temp breaks were, and then, realign for a different game plan the next time we go out. So, hopefully we're going to get one more shot, before you guys head back south, and see if we can't put something together. But it's kind of the fun of it. And one of the challenges that I enjoy the most is just, you go out there and you kind of figure it out each day, and risk reward. Sometimes you're the king of the bay, and other times you floating around yelling at somebody on a headset to come back and pick you up.
Yes. Yeah, Sunday we coming up here to Blue Water to Hampton. I told you earlier, we covered the same water that we covered earlier in the week, and we're seeing 60, 70 fish a day. And we did not see one single ray, did not see one single cobia. It was full on dead zone. That's just God's way of protecting them, I reckon.
I think so too. And I'm glad you said that, because that reminds me, we were talking about some of the stuff that you guys have seen down there, the sad decline in the numbers because of, the ability to kill 6 fish back in the day, and there was just so much cobia being harvested and over harvested. And we were talking about the size of fish to harvest, and some better to harvest than others when it comes to not just the size of the fish equating to how many eggs, but there was some other thing that you mentioned that I just want our listeners to hear kind of from you and your experience. What kind of class of fish is most important in your opinion to protect?
Well, we have done an awful lot of tagging with spaghetti tags over the years, averaging probably, for 20 years, we were averaging 60 plus fish a year with spaghetti tags. But more recently, we were hooked up with the Florida wildlife and putting acoustic tags in them where we would catch the fish, we'd lay them in V boards, and they would surgically implant these acoustic tags, and we took them out to drop their acoustic monitors also and anchor those to the bottom. And their biologists were on board, and so it's not coming from me, it's coming from them. They were saying that it is best to kill the larger fish and leave your medium-sized fish to keep swimming. Just like a lot of creatures, the older they get, they might still have the eggs, but they're not able to reproduce. They're not fertile.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying, it's better to kill a 65 plus pound cobia than it is to kill that good young 45-pound fish that's going to have more fertile eggs and able to give you more fish. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to throw back fish.
Mm-mm.
Nobody needs freezers and freezers full. And I'm guilty of it, just as so many people are. With even I feel if you kill a fish or you kill a deer, every single bit of that needs to be consumed. If you're going to take the life of something, and if I let something get freezer burn, it actually is disappointing. I'm disappointed in myself.
I feel that.
And it does feel good to throw them back. Throwing back 45, 50-pound fish.
Yep.
It feels good.
It does. And it's that, to be specific on inches, you guys down there, you measure to the fork. Here we measure from the lower, furthest point of the jaw all the way to the tip of the top part of the tail. So for us, that's going to be that, really kind of, 48, 49 inch and up fish that we really want to be letting go. That 40-pound class of fish is going to be more fertile. And really only harvest those, as much as we can, those smaller males in that 40 to 45-inch range. That's, in my opinion, often tastes a lot better. I mean, the other night we came back, we were out all day, caught a lot of fish, and we killed one and we bled it, and it was some of the most, beautiful fish I've seen in a long time. It was about a 47-inch fish, and you were able to cut it up in a way that we had, cobia sashimi, which was a first for me. But the way that it was bled and prepared, it was just absolutely delicious.
Delicious.
Oh yeah. And then talk us through that recipe. So you marinated it up and then you grilled it. I noticed too that you took that top loin and you cut it very specifically in what appeared to be about 3/8 to a half-inch thick slices, which I'm guessing is so that it absorbs more marinade kind of per square, inch of the meat. But what was that marinade that you cooked it in? It was so good.
Yeah, I usually just use whatever I got. Like I think I used I think it was Kent's Greek dressing, and added a lot more of the Greek herbs, natural, normal Greek herbs, basil and oregano and a little thyme probably.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a squirt of lemon juice. But yeah, just keeping in mind on that fish, just like McDonald's chicken nugget size is what you want. So you don't have, and you cook it quick. So to get the middle of it done, you want it thin. So to get the middle of it done, you don't have to overcook the outside. So when you pull it off the grill, it's all moist from top to bottom.
Yeah,
that's the main thing. Don't overcook it.
Yep. Don't overcook it. And you've got the experience of having worked in the restaurant business, being a chef and running restaurants. So you've been around the rigors of making things taste good. And I can personally attest that it was some of the best tasting cobia I've had in a long time. Adam, I'm just, feel, honored to have gotten to meet you as well as the mate aboard the Fathom offshore teamboat. Andy and those guys at Fathom are just doing some really cool, innovative stuff. While we were on board, you were talking me through several of, the lures and their purposes and the rigging types. Keith was telling us about the YouTube channel and where Andy, talks to us about how to rig things. And there's a lot of great learning tools there. So definitely go over to Fathom and check out their YouTube channel, their website, their Instagram. They've got all things that you could ever need for marlin, wahoo, you name it. One-stop shop for those things. And then, of course, Cat Matt, you're out there with Adam putting these things to the test in the real world and proving that they work by hooking up on these, incredible billfish. I'll remind folks to go back 2 episodes and check out the link in the show notes to the Getting the Bite article in Marlin Magazine. It's incredible. It's one of the coolest shots. But what I did not realize when you told that story on that episode, hearing Keith retell the story, 2.5 years that y'all had that photographer on board to get that shot. That is remarkable.
Yeah, well, we were getting multiple shots. We to get that one shot, we spent I think 18 days in Bermuda and did not get the shot. And then it was about our third or fourth day in St. Thomas that we actually got the shot. But Mark did travel to Venezuela with us to shoot white marlin in their natural environment, feeding. We took him to Tropic Star in Peñas Bay, Panama, to get the black marlin. That was pretty cool. We would have him sitting on the transom, and we'd have our tuna tubes running, and he'd be holding on to 25 foot of 400-pound mono that we'd have a live blackfin tuna bridled onto with no hook on it. But we'd raise a black marlin, and he'd jump off the transom with that leader and bonita or blackfin on the other end and his camera housing in the other end, and go out there and swim around and take pictures and video of the black marlin trying to eat the live bonita that's swimming around them. And it was pretty cool. And that was an experience. And we learned a lot with the white marlin in Venezuela. We floated a 1.25 miles, and we were able to keep a white marlin next to the boat, throwing spinning rods at it with lures, little fathom lures. And we'd throw ballyhoo at it, which that was our first go-to. And they'd pay no attention to the ballyhoo, but we'd rip them little lures past them, and they'd turn and come back to the boat. And the whole time, Mark's in the water taking pictures and videoing them, and it was quite the experience.
That's incredible. Well, I hope to hear more stories from you guys in the future. Y'all seem like quite the duo together. Adam, I got to give you a shout out, man. I've been around some mates and some hard workers, but your attention to detail to me is unmatched. The fact that we're just hanging out doing our thing, and you look down and you see my no live bait needed has a cut that's pretty much all the way through it. And I turn around, a few minutes later, and you got super glue, and you're super gluing that thing back together. So I guess I could say it's my fault that if my no live bait needed wasn't injured, you might not have fallen off the boat going back there to get the super glue. So my apologies. That one's on me.
No problem.
But any advice to the mates, the mates of the fishing industry, based on what you've experienced so far working on a world-class boat, what advice would you give to a mate or a prospect mate that might be looking at a full-time job on a boat?
I've only been doing this for going on just shy of 3 months, so I'm still very green to the industry, and I'm always trying to talk to mates and ask advice. And this one guy I met in Ocean City said, "You have 2 ears and 1 mouth," and even still, I sometimes struggle with that. I'm eager to jump ahead and kind of guess what Matt might be trying to tell me, and I go on interrupting him. And but before I took this job, I thought I had worked hard before, and I'm sure I have. But this is reinventing what hard work is to me, and it's definitely worth it, though. I mean, I get to see cool stuff every day, and to say that I work and live on this beautiful boat is kind of mind-blowing to some people. And yeah, I'm just very blessed to be here, and I'm going to continue to work hard every day and try to take in all the information like a fire hose.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot to take in for somebody new to it.
Yeah. Well, I heard you loud and clear. Two ears and 1 mouth. I think that's, anybody working in a support role of any type, the guy at the helm is there for a reason, experience, time. So the 2 ears, 1 mouth is definitely great advice. You might think you got a way to do it, but it's probably not as good as what the captain's going to recommend that you do, because his is proven. And then to wrap things up, it was just an absolute pleasure to get to go share, some of my family history with y'all today over there at Samra Seafood, get a tour, see how a lot of the distribution happens in our locality, that fish, fresh fish getting from production and the cutting line all the way out the door. And now we're going to get to enjoy some beautiful salmon and shrimp and crab meat and that bluefin tuna that just looks absolutely dynamite. So I'm going to leave y'all alone to go consume some of that, probably however you want. Hopefully some sort of a sashimi style food. Guys, thanks so much for hopping on the podcast with us to talk to our audience about your experience of cobia fishing in the Lower Chesapeake Bay.
Roger that.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure, y'all. That's going to wrap up a really cool conversation with the guys from the Fathom Offshore Team Fishing Boat Click Through. Y'all stick around for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, you guys, I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation with Captain Matt and Adam. I also want to make sure and share a little bit about Fathom Offshore and what they're doing. Definitely go online and check out their YouTube channel at Fathom Offshore. That's at Fathom Offshore. And Andy Holcomb with Fathom does an incredible job showing all sorts of rigging tips. So if you're an offshore angler and you're tuning in, definitely go check them out. If you want to learn some new ways of tying things up or some new options for chasing, billfish, wahoo, tuna, they have a huge, I guess you'd call it, library of videos of showing you how to rig things for big game, teasers, you name it, it's all there. So definitely check them out. And if you are going to be purchasing some offshore equipment soon, you can go visit their website. And I believe they've got a 10% off coupon for your entire order if you sign up for their email newsletter on their website. It's in the bottom left-hand corner right when you go to the website. You just click the little blue highlighted rectangle that says get 10% off, and you'll be able to enjoy a nice discount. And again, they're right here, made in the USA by anglers just like us who love nothing more than going out there in the blue water and chasing that big bite and getting those memories made, with friends and family. Guys, it's been a really cool week to have a conversation, learning what it's like to kind of come into a new fishery here and explore it and try to figure it out. I especially just love the spirit that Adam brings to the table as a mate. So humble, so ready to learn, 2 ears, 1 mouth, always ready to jump in and try to help wherever he can. But I gotta say, one of my favorite memories from that trip was just the big smile on his face as he's floating around in the water, holding his cell phone over his head. I'm okay, guys. And, it just, you don't see that every day. And I remember personally, being on that boat thinking to myself, I just need to make sure I don't fall in the water. I don't want to be the one that falls in the water. So Adam, if you're listening, thanks for taking that one for the team so it didn't have to be me. Guys, that's going to be the end of the show this week. Hopefully this weather turns around and we can get some reports of things going on offshore. I know I've seen a little bit from Captain Bill Pappas chasing a few sea bass lately. So hopefully this weather lightens up and we can step into the fall fishing. I'm eager to talk to Captain Russ again and find out what he's been seeing as they get out there. Captain Jake Bolts on the flying fish. Inshore, I know that Robbie Bryan and Andy Kim have teamed up on Reel Release and Sashimi Sport Fishing to do some fall trips on the Outlier, which is built perfectly for these colder temps as we get into the fall winter. So definitely keep an eye out for some exciting stuff to come and some more reports once we get back to fishing and past this weather blow. Y'all be safe out there, and we'll see you next week. So that's going to wrap it up this week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, to get your free AFTCO Camo Sunglasses Cleaning Cloth, just text the acronym LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get your promo code and be added to our email list so we can send you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them and be safe out there.